Alrighty, everyone, here we are at 7.6 notes, non-standard form of sine and cosine graphs. If you notice up here first, I've written out our standard form, okay? We know A is our amplitude. That determines our vertical stretch. We have B, which is our horizontal stretch, which helps with the phase shift, or the period, not the phase shift, the period. C is the one that's our horizontal shift, that is our phase shift, and D is our vertical shift. Okay, one thing we got to remember, that B must be factored out. Okay, you have to factor out B. You want the coefficient of x to always be 1. Okay, all right, so let's try and use that information to graph this equation. We have y equals sine 2 sine x, parentheses 2x minus 4 pi plus 2. Notice that their coefficient of x is a 2, so we have to factor that out. So we'll factor out a 2. So 2 sine, I'll take out a 2, and what's left over is x minus 2 pi plus 2. Oops, I forgot to put another parentheses up there. Okay, so now we want to look at each of the parts. So our amplitude is a 2. Let's use this one. Our period, remember it's always 2 pi divided by b. B for us is now 2. So it's 2 pi divided by 2, which means we have a period of pi. And what we're going to do is we're going to count by, take pi, the period, and divide by 4. We're going to count by pi over 4. We have a horizontal shift right here, and it's telling us to go to the right 2 pi. And this also is the phase shift. Okay, and then lastly we have a vertical shift right here. Okay, and that means we are going to go up 2 because it's a positive 2. So remember, that means our midline is y equals 2. It helps us to draw the graph. Okay, so here I have my graph. I pulled out a graph paper and added to it. So get graph paper, I have it going the long way. Notice that my y-axis is over to the left as much as I need, because I'm shifting 2 pi to the right, so I don't really want so much on the other side. And my shift up here, my vertical shift tells me I'm going, my midline will be y equals 2. So I don't really need the below, because my amplitude is 2. So I'm only going up 2, and then I'll go up to 4. So right here, I'll do 3, and I know I'm going to go up to 4. And let's put this 5 just so we see it. Okay, so what I'm doing is count by pi over 4. So we should already know how to do this. So go ahead and count pi over 4 up to 2 pi, and then come back to the video. All right, so I counted up to 2 pi. And so, but because a period is only pi, all right, so that would be this length between here and here. Okay, so this is a period. And then your next period would be between here and here. So those are periods pi. So that would be 2 periods between 0 and 2 pi. But because I'm shifting over a whole pi over 2 pi, I'm going to have to start at 2 pi. But I only want to go over 1 period, because I only need a period. One whole graph has to be between a length of pi. So if I think about that, going from 2 pi, add another pi, then I only have to count up to 3 pi. So let's finishing counting there and adding to our graph. So we have 2 pi. So that was 8 pi over 4. So this is going to be 9 pi over 4. 10 pi over 4 is next. And that is going to be 5 pi over 2. Next is 11 pi over 4. And then 12 pi over 4 is 3 pi. So I get to stop there. Okay. So now let's draw our points. So sine, I'm going to put in my vertical shift here. I'm going to do my midline. I'm just going to dash it. And then now I'm just going to plot my points where I need to go. Remember, the midline tells me how high and low I go from there for the amplitude. So normally we would do, we would start its sine graph. It's positive, so we're going to start at the midline. So we would start at 2 pi, the midline. So here's 2 pi, so we're going to start here. We'll go up to at 9 pi to the 4, go midline, max, back down to the midline, go to the minimum, and back to the midline. Okay, and there's your sine graph. So draw on your sine graph right here. Okay, now if I want to talk about key points, you list your key points from here. So my key points, and I'll just do that here for this one because we'll use it in a second. Okay. So we know it'd be at 2 pi, comma 2. We would have another one at 9 pi over 4. We have 5 pi over 2. 11 pi over 4 at 0. And then our last one would be 3 pi and 2. Okay, so your key points. So that would help you to graph, okay? So now what I want you to do, I want you to finish all the way because like I've been saying before, we're going to add a little bit more to it as we've been doing. So let's just keep going the rest of the way. So I'm just going to do it in blue. So if I just keep going, I go here, and then so I went to minimum, midline, max, midline, minimum, midline, max, midline. All right, there's the graph fully drawn. Domain for us for this one would be, just for looking at this part of the graph, would be between 0 and 3 pi. And then our range would be from 0 to 4. Okay? Now, since we have that small graph, and I still want to draw a little bit on the other one, but we had to shift over 2 pi. So the pink that I have here is the graph part that I want to look at, and look at what, if you're given the small little area that you're given on the actual example, I want to transfer that to there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that part of the page. All right, as I said before, we didn't have enough graph to put this on here, but if you're just given this information here, you probably discuss it in a history class or any type of thing where you're talking about like graphing large numbers and so forth. I think I've even discussed it in a prior class, or even a prior sometime this year. But if I have this little small graph that I have here, so I'm just going to label my y-axis. I'm going to go up to, I need to go up to from 0 to 4. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know my midline is at this 2 here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since I can't shift, if I try to shift over a whole 2 pi over here, you wouldn't see anything. You'd have to extend the graph out. So we're not going to do that. So what we do is we create this little squiggly here, okay? And what happens, it's telling you between, and I'm going to put 2 pi because that's where I'm starting because I had to shift over. Mathematically, any type of graphical way, you're saying that in this area right here, there's a whole bunch of graph there, but you can't see it. And I'm only graphing the part for one period from where it tells me to shift over. So that's going to happen if that arises up. Okay, I think 2 problems in your homework might do that, but just FYI, that's why I'm doing that. So I'm going to start at 2 pi, and I'm just going to count what I had before. I had 2 pi, and then I had 9 pi over 4. Then I had 5 pi over 2, 11 pi over 4, and then 3 pi. So now I'm just going to transfer those parts of the graph that I had earlier. So I had 2 pi. So if I look at my key points that I wrote earlier, 2 pi 2, and then I went to 9 pi up to 4, down to 5 pi up to midline, down here to 0, and then back to the midline. So here would be my graph, okay, if I did not have that information, that long of a graph, okay? All right, number 2. We're going to factor out the 2 because we see that b is inside the parentheses. So we're going to do y equals negative cosine 2x. Take the 2 out, divide everything by 2. That means I have a pi divided by 2 plus 1. Okay, so amplitude changes. So amplitude is amplitude does not change. Amplitude is 1, but remember it reflects. Don't write -1, please. Amplitude is a positive thing. Period. Well, our b is 2. So again, it's 2 pi divided by 2, which equals pi is our period. And again, we're going to count by pi over 4. Okay. Horizontal shift. Do we have a horizontal shift? Yes, we do. But it's shifting to the left. Pi over 2. Okay. And then our last one we have here is, do we have a vertical shift? Yes, we do. We're going up 2. And, oops, sorry, not up 2, up 1. I got the wrong one. And that means my midline will be y equals 1. Okay, so one thing about this one, when I go to draw my graph, since I'm counting by pi over 4, and I'm only shifting by pi over 2, I don't have to worry about what we did on the previous problem. Because if you go in here and go ahead and do, we're going to count by pi over 4, 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and then 4 pi over 4 is pi. And just go ahead and carry it all the way to that last tick mark there. Pi, and then we get 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4 reduces to 3 pi over 2. We're shifting to the left, so we should go ahead and do negatives. So we have negative pi over 4 again. So don't forget this is 0. I don't know why we keep forgetting to do that. So let's make sure that we realize that 0 is an important number. Can't forget it. Okay. All right. So now again, I'm shifting. My amplitude is 1, so I'm going up. Okay, and then 0. So I know my midline is at y equals 1. So 1. Okay, this is a negative cosine graph. So instead of starting at the max, like we know on the parent function, we're going to go and we're just going to start at the minimum. Okay, so but we're shifting over at pi over 2 by pi. So we're going to start at pi over 2. Okay, so let's do that part first, and then we'll write our key points. So at what we do, since it's an amplitude of 1 from the midline, I have to go down 1. So I'm going to start at negative pi. So I'm going to start at the minimum, go up to the midline. Don't forget the max at 0, midline, and then minimum. So draw your graph. Okay, so this is a cosine graph, reflected, shifted over, phase shift by pi over 2. Okay, so the key points off of here, again, we're going to do the key points off of our just one period that we normally would have. And the only reason I do this from here, so it helps you to remember this is where I need to be drawing my graph. If I said I just want one period of it, because of the shifting and everything. So negative pi over 4, comma 1, then 0, comma 2, pi over 4 and 1, and then pi over 2 and 0. So here are your key points, okay? So now your range is not different, so we can easily state that. So it's from 0 to 2. All right. Domain. So I want you to finish the entire graph, and I'm going to tell you I want your domain to be from negative pi to 3 pi over 2. So it means you extend your graph out, okay? But again, what we have right here, what I have, I'm going to just highlight through here, is what we would have drawn if I just said I want one period, okay? Okay, so complete the graph. So if I wanted 2 periods, this part that I'm highlighting here over everything else. The first one and this one will be your 2 periods, okay, between these, all right? Okay, let's go to number 3. Go ahead and factor everything out and graph it and come back and see what you have. Okay, so I do, by shifting over pi, I just start at pi. Make sure that you see that it starts here, and we into midline so far, and it looks just like this for our 1 period. This is your key points up here, so that you know where I started this from. If I told you just to graph this 1 period, this is what I would want. If I said key points, so you get off here. Now, the range is from -4 to 2. So, but I want you now to finish it with the domain of 4 pi to -4 pi to 6 pi. Okay, so let's just finish that out. And so I would start again. If it came up here to the max, then it would come down to the midline. So this part would come down this way if I wanted to graph it all the way out. Okay. If I wanted 2 periods, I would probably you would just go to the left. Okay, so if we're at the max, we're going to go down to the midline. Okay. Down to the minimum, midline. Oops, sorry, not there. I always want to start it. Okay, and then up to the max and down to the midline. Okay. So if I wanted you just to do 2 periods, then I would just go from here to here, and I would stop there. Okay, that would be 2 periods. But I told you domain to go all the way, so we go down here. Oops, off a little bit. Of course, my graph is not. Okay, so 2 periods, I'm just going to highlight that. Okay, would be from here. Let's do a different color that we can see a little bit better. Here, 1 period, 2 periods. Okay, so the highlighted blue is 2 periods, okay? And I just told you to graph all the way that way based on the domain. So, okay, all right, that's lesson 7.6.